Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Danielle's Denture Diaries. I am Danielle, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience with veneers. If you're interested, go ahead and keep watching. So veneers or caps kind of have a similar purpose. So the idea is that you have your tooth, and for whatever reason, some reason or another, your dentist or surgeon has decided or deemed it salvageable. However, it needs an added layer of protection. Now, in my case, if you haven't watched my previous videos, I was born with no enamel. Enamel's primary and probably sole purpose is to protect your teeth. Now, that's also the material that gives your teeth, not these ones, someone else's, not these. They're not real. They're plastic. But it gives your teeth the white appearance. If it wasn't for enamel, your teeth would look very different. So for me, because I was born without enamel, by about age 8 or 9, my baby teeth had, for the most part, fallen out, and my adult teeth had grown in without the enamel and still looked a lot like my baby teeth, so very small. They were actually even yellowish in appearance and were very brittle. They did break. They were, for lack of a better word to describe it, they were decaying at a much more rapid rate than what would be considered normal or age appropriate for an 8 or 9-year-old. So because I was so young, the main point from my dentist, and any dentist really, is they are supposed to protect and preserve teeth. No dentist wants to pull teeth. It's the opposite of what they actually should be doing for a living. Now, obviously, in some cases, exceptions are made where the teeth are not worth saving and they actually become a dangerous hazard for the person who has to deal with them. Now, when I was young, because I was so young, my dentist had said that by pulling teeth at such a young age would be very traumatic and unnecessary. So the plan was to postpone the inevitable for as long as possible. Now, for me, it's very frustrating as the person who had to deal with the process and all the things that I'll talk about here later on in the video. But I can certainly understand why the professional would want to do that. If I was a professional and I had to deal with someone like myself, a child, I would also not want to have to pull teeth and then figure out how do I help this child have teeth, and you probably get the picture at this point. But that's where I was. Now, during my process, I'm saying now a lot again, aren't I? Yeah, I am. The next part of my process was figuring out the material and how are we going to accommodate to my growing up and maturing. The first 2 phases of my reconstructional surgery were plastic caps. Plastic caps are not as durable. They are well insulated, so that makes them a pretty good way to protect whatever tooth is laying underneath. But it's not the ideal permanent stage of reconstructional surgery or the rebuilding of your teeth, smile, mouth, whatever you want to refer to it as. So those are my 2 first phases. Now I did it again. In my reconstructional surgery, what they do to place a cap or a crown is you have your tooth, and what the dentist or surgeon has to do is they take what would typically be something like a square or squoval tooth and they make it cone shaped. That is the idea. They need it to be smaller so that this cap or crown can fit over it, and there has to be enough tooth to still anchor that cap or crown. But it does need to be smaller so that that crown can now fill in those spaces where your tooth once or should have been. For me, getting my reconstructional surgery, my teeth were not cone shaped. They were jagged and sharp. If you look at what's trending nowadays, I'm not sure why, but I will talk about that later on as well, is teenagers, influencers, these different people who go out of their way to file their teeth in order to get rid of it. Filing your teeth is also very painful. Let me just say that. So, I got my plastic crowns. They lasted me a while. They did fall apart. I even had one experience the night before a cheerleading competition back in middle school, where my front tooth literally had like slid off, just the front of it. I still had the back of my cap on there, but the front had literally just slivered. So you had the back of my crown and then you had the tooth sitting in front of it. And we had to rush to my oral surgeon and he had to cement it back together before I could go back to cheerleading. So there was that. Now, in the porcelain phase, the idea in my case was to wait until my face had matured as much as it possibly could have, which includes my jaw dropping down, my cheeks filling in or sinking in as much as they were supposed to be, and kind of determining at that point as a young adult what size and what shape crowns or veneers were going to be the best for me. And because I was so young, they opted for the whitest of white, and the rest was pretty much history. So that was my experience with getting my crowns and caps or veneers. Now, from what I've seen, it's become a growing trend, and in my personal opinion, it's actually kind of heartbreaking because I had to get these things done without an option. I had to, and a phrase that I've used previously is everyone's concern was that I would be socially accepted. And obviously eating is important and your teeth are a part of your digestive system in an off way. So it was important and imperative that I get that done. For people that are opting for it because they got one cavity or because they think it's going to be an easy way out, they don't have to take care of teeth anymore, not physical, biological teeth. So they assume it's going to be easier to take care of two hunks of plastic. And between a lot of you guys and me, we already know that's not the case. So it's very sad that people think that you no longer have to do as much when, if anything, it's actually going to be a lot more hard work in the long run. Now, I'm not saying that these people are getting dentures right away, but something that I think people are not mindful of, and something that I had to become aware of since high school, is what's happening under that cap. What's happening under that crown. When I went in for my last and final day of reconstructional surgery and getting the remaining porcelain veneers put in and installed, I actually asked my dentist, why am I doing this and not getting bolts? I saw a pamphlet. My dentist at the time, or my surgeon, typically worked on elderly people or people that had been in a very bad car accident or something else that caused their face to need reconstructional surgery, and he would build it. So I saw the pamphlet or brochure for the bolts, and I was like, wow, then you don't have to worry about decay and rot. And then it occurred to me, I'm getting these caps and these crowns. My teeth are decaying at a rapid rate. What's going to happen later? What's going to happen as my teeth continue to go? So I asked him, what's going to happen? And he said, yes, your teeth will continue to decay and all the biological things underneath the crown. So then I asked, why not just take them out and give me bolts then? Give me something that's sustainable. And I don't think people plan for that. Crowns have to be repaired and replaced, and they're not cheap. For anyone that can financially support and take care of veneers and caps, I'm not saying that they're the worst thing in the world. I'm sure that for some people, it is a really great route and a great option that does work for people. I'm not saying it doesn't. But for me, I'm not wealthy. I'm rich in love and family and that stuff. But I'm not wealthy in finances. And as a young adult growing up with this issue, something that I had to realize as I got older is what is sustainable and what's not. Having bleached hair, for example, for me, is not sustainable. I tried. It's not. That's just being realistic. So, once upon a time, I colored my hair black, and here we are. And I had to come to that same realization with my veneers. As beautiful as they are, as functional and amazing and natural as they seemed for me at the time, they were gonna have to go eventually. In my previous videos, I talk about how my teeth, one by one, would break and fall apart. My crowns would break and go missing. I'd even ingested one while I was pregnant. Again, if you can sustain it and keep up with it and you have the finances and the means, please, by all means, go ahead and do it. Especially if you have a good dentist who can match you up with a really great set of veneers that work for your teeth. For me, it wasn't realistic. So, something that I wish people would think about before they go and get these crowns and these veneers is you still have to keep up with it. You still have to maintain it. And one day you're gonna have to revise what you currently have. Because much like dentures, little did I know, you have to eventually replace it. You have to eventually go back and have your veneers checked for cracks and holes and gaps. You have to be aware of the fact that even if you're not necessarily like me, your teeth underneath those crowns and caps are still biological. They're still, over time, rotting and decaying. And they're not going to stay there forever. My dentist, during that same final appointment, I asked him, so what happens when the teeth underneath, for me, it's going to happen very soon, or much sooner than most people. What happens when those teeth are rotted and causing decay and who knows what else? Then what? Well, and not in his words verbatim, but then your veneers have nothing to hold on to. No veneers to hold, no teeth for your veneer or cap or crown to hold on to. You're probably running the chances of disease and infection. And I think that for me, looking back, something else that I didn't think on much is you can't see what's happening to your teeth. Your teeth, your body, has natural ways of giving off warnings and signs that there's something wrong and you need to take care of it. Things, for example, like pain. When someone gets a root canal, you're killing off nerve endings. You're burning them. You're cauterizing them. So what happens when that tooth is starting to rot and decay, but you can't feel the pain because those nerves are burned? It's food for thought for me when I heard about that. It didn't occur to me until this year, and I'm 27. So when you can't see your teeth, those are things to think about. I also failed to mention early on that the difference between a cap and a crown, a cap is plastic. And like I said, it's very well insulated, but it's also a little more breakable and fragile. When you get porcelain veneers or crowns, those are not as well insulated. So something that I was warned about as soon as I started to get my veneers installed is I'm going to have a lot of sensitivity to hot and cold and possibly sweets when I first start off. And I was going to have to learn to desensitize myself. And wow. They were not kidding. Hot wasn't as bothersome for me, but cold was definitely asking for some shooting pain. Biting into an ice cream cone was probably not the smoothest move on my part, to be honest. But that was something that, like I said, I had been seeing it come up on YouTube. It was something that had come up as like some type of news, I guess, on YouTube. And I just couldn't help but sit and think to myself, if I could have been born with enamel and had decently healthy teeth, I wouldn't wish any part of my journey on a young adult or a child. I wouldn't. Especially if the worst thing that you're dealing with was one cavity. I personally, at one point in time in elementary school, I had 8 cavities. I had 8 metal caps put over my molars. I didn't realize how big of a deal that was until high school, and I mentioned it to my best friend at the time, and she gave me a look, and I was like, oh, that's right, cavities are very bad. And I'm not saying that everyone that has 8 cavities like that is gonna need anything like this done, but that's just as an example. It's just sad. It's kind of heartbreaking, to be honest. Especially something else that's kind of crazy is hearing about people that are able to that take a drill, I guess, or a file or something, and they file their own teeth down because they're saving costs. Shaving your teeth down and shaping them to what they need to be for veneer or crown prep, that costs money. And if what you have is not medical, it's not covered by insurance, is considered cosmetic, I can only imagine how much pain these people are in and they put themselves through for that. It's just wild to me and just sad. Really sad. But let me know what you guys think. Am I off my rocker? Am I out of line to have this point of view and perspective when I see that coming across my YouTube timeline? Or I guess it's not a timeline, it's more of a news feed, right? Do you guys feel any different? Do you think that the people are right in doing this? Are you indifferent? I mean, I know it's not really any of my business. I mean, who am I to say what people can and can't do? And by all means, do what makes you happy, like I said. And if you have the finances for it, do it. That's fine, as long as it makes you happy. I just don't think people are aware of the consequences and what they're actually getting themselves into. And if it's a young adult doing this to themselves, and they're not taking the time to look into it first, and all they see is a Hollywood smile. That's concerning for me. That's a lot to put yourself through and your body through for cosmetic purposes. But again, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Have you had veneers? Have you had crowns? What was your experience like? If you like this kind of a video from me, I know this is a little different, it's a little off topic from what I typically do. Leave a like. Let me know. If you don't like it, give me some feedback. Let me know otherwise. And if you would like to see more videos like this from me in the future, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.